All right, I wanted to do a quick video just to Tim Pool real quick, or really anyone who has questions about immigration. There's a lot of misinformation out there on the left and the right, and Tim Pool uses the same logical fallacies, and I'm sure he doesn't understand which logical fallacies he's using. And if anyone has any questions, please just put down in the comments. I'd be happy to engage with anyone on these questions. But essentially, immigration is extremely complicated, and the way it's being talked about in the media and by non-experts is kind of like talking about Iran without understanding that it is a Muslim country, without understanding the tensions in the Middle East. You're just missing a whole lot of context. So the first thing that Tim Pool misses is that he says, hey, we just need to know who's coming in, how long they'll be here, what they're doing here, who they are, stuff like that. Yes, everyone agrees with that, and that is 100% the problem of our current immigration system. People only come in illegally because our immigration system is an incredible, breathtaking bureaucracy. It would be the equivalent of if it took the $50,000 and 10 years to get a driver's license. That is that's unreasonable. There's no reason it should take that long, and people would find extra legal ways to get driver's license if that were the case. And if the government really wanted to crack down on illegal driving, they could, but only by instituting a totalitarian state or totalitarian regulations, which is kind of the situation we're in. And one of the reasons I say we need a reformation with immigration policy is that over the years, just more and more laws get added every year, and it gets more and more complicated, and no one ever goes back and repeals these laws, especially immigrants who, once you get in here, there's no reason to go back and reform the laws. You just have other stuff to do. There's no, embedded group that works on undoing these laws. And part of the problem is, look, when Einstein came to the United States, when perhaps even Tim Pool's ancestors, he says he's mixed race, he doesn't talk specifically about how his ancestors came to the United States, but I guarantee they had an easier time of it than immigrants do today, just because it has become more difficult every year, every decade or so. So if his parents came here more than 10 years ago, it was probably a much easier process for them, or 20 years ago. Ellis Island, when we were letting in, all kinds of different people, Ellis Island was basically, hey, do you have a contagious disease? Do you have all your limbs? Are you a single woman? If you're a single woman, do you have someone here who can take care of you? If you met those three things, it just waved you on through. 99% of people got past Ellis Island. And this is before, computers and databases, and it turned out okay. Same thing with the United States. Immigration has given us the economic and technological edge over other countries for generations. So one of the things that immigration advocates say is, hey, if it's not broken, don't fix it. The immigration to the United States has been very, very easy for hundreds of years. Only very recently in American history has it become so difficult. And, we don't need to go back. And in fact, we do need to go back to the way things were. Look, people's main concern is safety. Mexico has computers. Mexico knows who broke the law and who's trying to run from the law and all kinds of things. We can keep those people out. And in fact, if you made immigration much easier, people wouldn't be afraid to go to the cops, because right now you have a situation where if there is a drug kingpin or if there is a murderer in your midst, no one wants to report that person. No one wants to take legal action against them because they're worried that the feds will understand that they're illegal and deport them, or that even if you're in a sanctuary state, that the federal government will deport them, and it's not worth the risk of documenting yourself. So a lot of times these crime lords have just run free because the community is unable to come to the police. You can actually get a lot of these people to work with the police, to work against the crime lords. You can take away their cover by giving people a reasonable path to citizenship. Another thing, Tim Pool talks a lot about jobs. Hey, I went to this job fair, and ever since Trump made these things about, illegal immigrants, a lot more Americans are getting jobs. Look, you're really putting the cart before the horse. Trump did a lot of things to improve the economy. He did massive reformation of taxes. Really great stuff on the tax front. Massive reformation of how regulations are implemented. really, really great for corporations. These two things have increased the amount of hiring. Let's be really clear. Donald Trump has not made a dent in the number of illegal immigrants currently in the United States or their children. Even if you slow the number of people coming into the United States, that's very different than, having a net deportation of people from the United States. There's still millions, perhaps tens of millions, of illegal immigrants in the United States, or illegal immigrants or their children who are minors. So it's just one of those things that, hey, it's not what Tim Pool is seeing isn't necessarily the fact that, hey, you don't let immigrants in, and you increase, the number of jobs or whatever, or the number of jobs are then, allowed for Americans goes up. The fallacy here, I mentioned logical fallacies earlier. The fallacy here is that there's a set number of jobs. There are an infinite number of jobs that need to be done. Literally infinite. We don't have enough labor. Literally, unemployment's at 3.5% right now. In many sectors, it's negative. 3.5% includes all of, everyone who's addicted to heroin, everyone who's, addicted to alcohol, everyone who has unrealistic expectations about what the world needs to give them in order for them to go to work. All of that, including, as long as you're looking for a job, you are included in those unemployment statistics. So, there are many sectors of, the country, of, industry, which have negative unemployment. They need people just to stay afloat. And right now, it looks like that, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. I don't want to predict the future, but there's a lot of businesses struggling right now because there's not enough labor. And look, it's just one of those things. Government regulations can go too far. And Tim Pool talks all the time about, hey, government regulations, liberals need to, double check when regulations have gone too far and reform them. Yes, that's what we're saying right now, Tim, that government regulations have gone way too far. And notice how Tim never talks specifically about, the immigration process. He talks about what's Trump's doing. He maybe talks about a headline, really, really surface level stuff. He never actually goes into the actual issue. The actual issue is that, government regulations have increased the price of immigration way too high, and a black market has developed. Just like the black market for pot, just like the black market for, all kinds of drugs, alcohol in the past. And look, the more Tim wants to, the more he would like to see these restrictions increased, the larger the incentive is for the black market to operate. And here's what I'll say. Tim Pool talked about the migrant caravans today and how he turned them away, or how Trump turned them away. Not Tim Pool, but how Trump turned the migrant caravans away, and how Trump's winning on this front. I want to challenge Tim Pool to do to look up the number of drug busts, and he could do a story on every single large drug bust in the United States. It would very quickly take over his channel. There are a huge number of drug busts. That being said, there's also a huge number of people who do drugs. The vast majority of drugs come to the United States, and there's no story written about them because they come in secretly, and they're sold secretly, and they're consumed secretly, under the table, away from government, the government's eye. Same thing with illegal immigration. The vast majority of immigrants who come here never make it onto a government statistic. They're trying to avoid government statistics, so that they don't get caught. So the vast majority of people coming in are not on that caravan. That caravan may be a political stunt. Maybe people think they can draw media attention and get in easier that way. But look, the vast majority of people coming in aren't coming in that way. They're coming in other ways that Tim Pool is not aware of, essentially. And that's the point. The point is that Tim Pool doesn't know about them, and that's why they're using those methods. Anyways, well, long story short, it's not an attack on Tim Pool. It's that if Tim Pool knew about them and reported on, those immigration methods, then, the government would be able to act and stop them. So there's a huge vested interest on, the exact, tunnels people use, the paths people use, how people, get in via trucks, and how people say, hey, no, this truck is just for, this truck is, transporting, bricks, and then a bunch of people are in the truck instead, all kinds of stuff like that, the government's not necessarily aware of or very easily able to stop. Just continuing on, Tim Pool talks a lot about, he calls it an exploit, people coming here on a vacation visa, having their children, and going back. It's not an exploit, it's a workaround. And this is very important distinction for Tim Pool. The government knows about it. They didn't stop it on purpose. Right now, what happens to if Tim Pool talks about never having been to college. So one of the life experiences he may have missed is knowing someone who was a foreigner who came here on an education visa, who must go back to their country, even after they did a huge amount of, even after, the United States invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in their education. There's a limited number of spots in STEM fields. There's a limited number of spots at universities. And the United States gave it to this person. And because of that, having to send them back means we lost that capital. We lost, all of the wealth that person would have produced. And not only that, also national security. Realistically, a lot of these people are going to go back and work for, the defense departments of their own country, the military, working on, military tech. That person could be working for the United States. The United States wants them here. The universities want them here. The people want to stay here. But we have to send them back because our immigration system is a real mess. And if you don't win that lottery ticket, then you're getting sent back. And so what I said is this is a workaround, not an exploit, is that these are the best and the brightest coming here for a short time, having children, so that when they send their kids here for an education later on in life, they have the option of staying. That is a workaround that the government has been, knowledgeable about for for decades. And the reason the government hasn't done anything about it is because they want it to be the case. They want people to stay here. It's just very difficult to reform it's very difficult to reform immigration laws. It would be a similar task to reforming how traffic stops are conducted in the United States. It's possible for the federal government to go and put in a lot of laws, a lot of regulations to change the entire system and change the way traffic stops are conducted by police officers. Even though it's a state-run thing, it would be possible for the federal government to do it, but it would just be very difficult, very time-consuming. Most politicians don't have the time. There's not an embedded interest group forcing them to do it. Long story short, I want to say that, look, people have been immigrating here for generations. Most people have came here when immigration was much easier. The system's not broken. In fact, it is too restrictive. I would encourage Tim Pool to look into many of these things, actually how immigration is done, the immigration process. Tim Pool says, if you're a refugee, you can come in. If you're just here for a better life, I don't care, whatever. Very, very callous attitude. Not only callous, but doesn't understand how the economy works. And it's very evident that Tim Pool is he's just missing a couple things. I know lots of people. Tim Pool gets this all the time, but look, I'm not saying you need to talk to me about necessarily the economy, but you need to read these white papers that these think tanks produce. You need to look at how A affects B affects C. Because you're missing a lot of it. It's not just that it's very callous to tell someone, oh, you're just here for a better life. You're just here because you make $2 an hour where you're at, and you want to make $5 an hour here in the United States. Well, you can stay over there. Not only is that very callous, but we actually need people willing to work for those lower wages. Anyways, long story short, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The American system of immigration was not broken for 100 years, 150 years before the people, mainly leftists, broke it. And we really need to do a real evaluation. We need to roll back the immigration laws we have now and have things a lot more to the way they used to be. Anyways, have a great day. I wasn't trying to be harsh, Tim, if you do watch this. I apologize if this came off harsh. I just trying to, rambling. This is the fourth time I made this video. So things may have been a little bit out of order too, just because I kind of... Anyways, you get better editing software. Bye.